I think I have this going in the right way. Let's hope so. All right, so let's start with this masterclass on sheet pan meals. Uh, First off, this is a live recording. So if I get interrupted by a kid or I live in New York City, so if you hear sirens in the back or whatever, please just disregard. I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm recording this live, so it is what it is. The other thing I wanted to let you know is if you are here live, there is a chat. I'm just going to type here in the chat. Leave questions here if you have any. And that way, if anybody comes in late, they can see the chat there. Okay, so it is 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon in New York City, like I said. So this is Eastern Standard Time, which means that some of you are in work, some of you are off because it's actually President's Day. But I hope that all of you are ready to get your kitchen situated and figure out a great way to make sheet pan meals. So what we're going to be learning about today in this sheet pan class, this like master class, and this is the type of stuff that I usually wind up teaching in my own cooking classes here in New York City. But we're going to be learning about how a sheet pan meal, how you can throw together a sheet pan meal with pretty much any ingredients in your fridge, which is the dream, right? Like just to be able to come home at the end of a long ass day, because I know how that goes, pull whatever you've got in your fridge, put it on a sheet pan, put the sheet pan in a hot oven, and then pull it back out like 20 minutes to a half an hour later with dinner done. Like that's the beauty of a really good sheet pan meal is it's everything goes on one pan, you put it in a hot oven, and you're done and you're ready to go. So I'm going to teach you kind of like some of the ninja sheet pan tricks and secrets and everything that I use when I'm making my own sheet pan meals at home to get a really I have a near perfect record with sheet pan meals of just throwing stuff on a pan. But there's a few formulas and secrets and hacks and things that you should know before you go into doing that. And I'm going to share with you today some of my favorite ways to make a sheet pan meal. So number one, before we get going on this, if you do have any questions, let's leave them in the group chat over on the side. If you're watching this on the app, you can just kind of swipe through and you'll see the option for the group chat, or you can send a message directly to me. I can't see the chat stuff while I'm actually talking, so I'll wait until the end to do questions if there are any. If you do have a question that pops up after the end of the class, like after the class is finished, then feel free to just send me a message. My email is Ruthie with a Y, RUTHY, @percolatekitchen.com. And you can always contact me via my website, which is percolatekitchen.com, or on Instagram or Facebook. All of those things are Percolate Kitchen. So the other thing I wanted to say is that there will be a replay of this class after the class is finished. So for those of you who aren't here now hearing me speak live, I'm going to be sending this replay out to you so you can watch it and you can go back and see whatever you want. If you were watching the class and you wanted me to stop and go over something else, you'll have a replay there, so you'll be able to watch it at your leisure. And I wanted to also say who I am. So I am Ruthie, if we have not met, creator of Percolate Kitchen. I am also a cooking class instructor and a meal recipe developer and a recipe tester, freelance recipe tester, living in Queens in New York City. I have 2 young kids. I'm a working mom and I have 2 young kids. My son is 2.5 and my daughter is 5, and my husband works pretty demanding hours. He owns a bar in Manhattan. So I find myself a lot of the time cooking on my own at the end of a work day with 2 hangry kids who are like hanging off my legs. And sheet pan meals were really revolutionary for me when I first discovered them. I have a background in culinary arts. I have a background working in all kinds of professional kitchens. I've worked on the line. I've worked in catering. I've waited tables and bartended and worked as a private cook and recipe testing and development, which I've been doing for a long time, which is when I work with like cookbook publishers or food brands and I help them develop recipes or test recipes for a book. So I've worked in all manner of professional cooking areas, but becoming a mom and figuring out how to take the practical knowledge that I knew from a professional standpoint and making it work with our insane schedule, that was like a whole new ball of wax for me. And in 2016, right after my daughter was born, was when things got really difficult. I had postpartum depression, and I didn't really understand how to meal plan and how to actually like make a plan of meals for a set number of days and purchase those ingredients and work through them and make sure that that worked with our budget and meal prepping and getting on top of freezer meals. I didn't know how to do really any of that. I was used to kind of like a real lackadaisical style of cooking where I felt like eating chili. So we would go to the store and buy the ingredients for chili, and then we would eat takeout the next couple nights and eat leftovers. Like I didn't have any sort of a structure to my meal plans and to my kitchen and to my way of cooking. And I had to learn that as a new mom with a husband who, like I said, was working out of the home a lot. He was working like 70, 100-hour work weeks at the time. And so I really had to learn a lot of stuff kind of like on the fly, figuring out how to make our grocery budget, which was pretty small at the time, work with me being a single parent practically at home a lot. He was obviously home every evening, but it wasn't in a typical 9-to-5 capacity. So I really had to pull a lot of my past knowledge as a professional chef together with my new figuring out how to be a mom and run a household kind of a thing. I got a lot better at it, thankfully, and developed like a system and a formula of meal planning and cooking and prepping and purchasing my groceries and everything. And 2016, I launched my website, Percolate Kitchen. It started as a newsletter and kind of grew into a website. And then from there, I started working more as a cooking instructor and a meal planning coach. And then I took all of the stuff that I had been teaching in little bits and babs and the things that I had been doing in my own kitchen, and I condensed them into kind of like a formula and a system that I can teach other people. And I'm calling that Uncomplicated Kitchen. So it's a process that I've been teaching for a while, but I have now put it into an online course. And this meal masterclass is part of this online course where you can walk step by step through how to make your kitchen and the way you think about your kitchen and the way you think about meal planning and meal prep, going from being really overwhelmed and not knowing where to begin and feeling super harried and stressed and just like ready to order pizza every single night, to having a routine and making your kitchen be a super calm and like orderly, understood place with backup for the days when the shit hits the fan. I teach all of that, how to make it be an easy process in your life, because when you have everything taken care of in your kitchen, your meal planning, your meal prep, your food, all of that, your meals, and the cooking is simple and you've got a good, easy routine, it gives you a lot more mental capacity and time to spend doing other stuff that's not cooking and cleaning and being stuck in the kitchen. It gives you that time to spend with your family or by yourself or a combination of both, sitting on the couch in front of Netflix and not being like, oh, I gotta go get dinner made. Like, it just releases that kind of feeling. So that's what Uncomplicated Kitchen can do for you. And sheet pan meals are a big part of why and how I make my Uncomplicated Kitchen formula work. One pan and one pot meals are a big part of that. And sheet pan meals, I have been learning, is kind of not totally understood. On the basis of it, a lot of people get the concept of a sheet pan meal, which is when you have an entire meal cooked on a sheet pan that you then put in the oven, and then you pull it out and dinner's made. And I understand that a lot of people get that concept, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty of always being able to make a good sheet pan meal and being able to throw stuff on that pan and having it taste good and what kind of pan you use, when you get into those details, that can be a little bit overwhelming. So that's what I want to talk about with you today. These 3 ninja secrets of sheet pan meals that you can then take into your own kitchen and use them to create great and easy recipes that you could just throw together on a weeknight. So let's get into this. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the actual pan. And this is a lot more important than I think people give it credit for. So I've got here 2 sheet pans that I wanted to show you. This one I use all the time when I'm baking cookies. It's a decent pan. It's rather thin. I think I got it at the dollar store, or maybe I just got it like in the cheap section of Target. It's well loved. It's kind of flimsy. It makes great cookies. It's good for Swiss rolls or anything. It's got a kind of a thin thing, a thin lip here. This is not the pan that I would recommend for sheet pan meals. that pan is something more like this. So this is a pan by Analon. It's got, this particular pan has these comfort handles here, but a good sheet pan doesn't have to have them. But the difference between this pan and the other pan is that this is much sturdier, it's much heavier, it's got a lot more heft to it. I've been using this pan for about 10 years. I have been using it and abusing it. I know the light's a little bit awkward, so you can't quite see how it is, but it's really well loved. I'll say that. Very abused is probably a better way of describing a pan. When you're looking for the right sheet pan, this is kind of a controversial topic that I'm about to say, but it's more of a joke. I stole it from Anthony Bourdain, so it's not even my own joke. But when he talked about purchasing saucepans, he said this thing that I also say in regards to sheet pans, which is, if you're looking for the right pan to purchase, make sure that the pan that you purchase, the pan that you go with, could cause serious harm to somebody if you hit them over the head with it. So if you take this pan and you take all of your aggression out on someone and it legit knocks them out, then that's the pan that you want. You want something that's sturdy and hard and will conduct heat well. It won't warp in the hot oven. It doesn't get that weird thing where it kind of like twists up in one corner. A good sturdy sheet pan is going to stay flat like this the entire time, which ensures even cooking. It's going to conduct that heat, and it's going to make a really good caramelization and a browning on the ingredients that you want in here, which is what the beauty of sheet pan cooking is. It pulls in that dry heat from the oven, and it uses that to pull the sugars out of ingredients, which caramelizes them, which gives them that nice brown outside, and that pulls those sugars up more towards the surface and distributes them so that the food tastes better, and you don't have to rely on the breaking down of collagen like you would in a crock pot meal to make something more palatable. It means that you don't need to rely on heavy sauces or a lot of seasoning to get a lot of flavor. When you're cooking a sheet pan meal, and when you're using a decent pan like this, that those two things working together, like a good heavy pan that conducts a decent amount of heat and prepared ingredients that are ready to, like, fresh and ready to go, you're going to get a good flavor almost no matter what you do. Just a little bit of olive oil and salt is going to pull all the good flavors out of your ingredients so that it makes it a lot easier to throw those recipes together. So this is a great pan. This is from Analon. I was gifted a set of these at my wedding 10 years ago, and it's multi-weekly experience using these. I've used them on multiple occasions, just about on a weekly basis since, and they are still in fabulous shape. This cookie sheet I bought, like, I don't know, 2 years ago, I think. And it's great for cookies. I would not use it for making a dinner meal plan. It's just way too flimsy. I mean, I'm not going to knock myself out. But if you took this thing and you hit someone on the head with it, they would be like, you're a dick. They wouldn't get knocked out at all. But if you knock them with this thing, they're probably going to be, knocked unconscious. So don't do that. Don't actually take my word for it, or don't actually do it. Just take my word for it that the heavy pan, the sturdy thing, is what you want, and you don't want something super flimsy. And you can quote me. You can quote Tony Bourdain on that. God rest his soul. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, let's move these out of the way. The next kind of like sheet pan secret is when you're putting ingredients together, when you're pulling stuff out of your fridge or your cupboard and you want to put it all on a sheet pan to cook. This is a really important thing, and it kind of, it makes sense once you hear it, but that everything on the pan needs to cook the same length of time. The best part about a sheet pan meal is that you put the pan in the oven and then you pull it out and everything is cooked properly the way that they should be. But that doesn't always happen when you just throw whatever on the pan, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you had big chicken breasts and skinny little asparagus stalks, the asparagus is going to cook at a different rate, a different length of time than those thick chicken breasts will, because you need a specific amount of time for the heat to reach through the center of the ingredient and cook it all the way through. And that's going to happen a lot faster with small asparagus stalks than it will with a big fat chicken breast. So I have these to show you, chicken and asparagus, because that's a great easy starter meal, is just tossing chicken and asparagus in like lemon pepper or something like that, a little bit of olive oil, and putting it in a hot oven for maybe I'd say 20 minutes, depending on how thick your chicken stalks are or your chicken breasts are. And then when you pull it out, the asparagus has caramelized and crisped up. It gets that nutty flavor. And the chicken, if it's cut in the right way, will cook at in the same rate of time that the asparagus will. So if you're taking chicken thighs, you would want to cut these into strips and let them cook almost like a chicken tender. That means that the heat in the oven will reach through to the other side of the chicken and cook it all the way through in the same length of time it would take to also cook the asparagus. This can take a little bit of trial and error. And I understand that when I say cook everything at the same and cut it all to cook at the same time, that doesn't necessarily bode well for those of us who are newbies to this sort of thing and don't feel like we have like an innate understanding of the way that ingredients work. And I get that 100%. But the best way that you're going to figure out how to get a good sheet pan meal is by getting in there and making those mistakes. You're going to understand how long it would take a specific cut of chicken to cook. So if you're super new to the idea of sheet pan meal cooking and throwing ingredients together, I would find a whole bunch of recipes that are tried and true. Melissa Clark does great recipes. I make great recipes. I have a cookbook that's out, the Healthy Sheet Pan Cookbook. Find some recipes that are tried and true sheet pan meals and make them, and get kind of like that feel for how long a specific ingredient would take in a 375-degree oven, for example. Oh, and I forgot, I have these little visual reminders to kind of show us. So secret number one, I'm going to put this up here so you can see. So secret number one is get a good sheet pan. That could hurt somebody if you hit them, but don't actually do that. Just take my word for it that it works. So secret number one, get a good pan. Secret number two, cut similar shapes and sizes of your ingredients. So let's put that here. And then secret number three, I like this one, although it does also take a little bit of tinkering. Secret number three is let the ingredients do the work. So one of the coolest things about sheet pan meals is that since everything cooks together on the sheet pan, all of those ingredients and all of those flavors meld together during the cooking process, just like it would in any other kind of like stovetop or crockpot pan or crockpot recipe, but they all meld together, and then they get that caramelization effect coming from the hot pan or the hot oven, which creates tons of flavor, like without having to add heavy sauces or tons of seasoning or cheese, even though, I mean, always add cheese. I would recommend that across the board. I just love cheese, but you don't have to. A good sheet pan recipe is going to use a lot of flavors anyway. So in the cookbook, in my cookbook, the Healthy Sheet Pan Cookbook, and also on my website, I talk a lot about sheet pan formulas. A sheet pan formula is when you have a structure to think of specific types of sheet pan meals. So some would be like a good sheet pan meal is like granola. That's a standard sheet pan meal. Or the chicken asparagus. Or there's a paella recipe in my cookbook where you start with dry rice, add liquid and chicken, you wrap the whole thing in tin foil, and then you cook it. Those are all sheet pan meals, but they're all very different styles of sheet panning. But they all take in the dry heat of the oven and meld it together with a bunch of different ingredients that make a great meal. So if you look at these specific formulas, those three styles of meals will fall under different types of formulas. And in the cookbook, and also in A Complicated Kitchen, we go into these formulas a lot. And on my website, in Percolate Kitchen, we go into these styles of formulas a lot that would teach you how to kind of think about the structure of specific sheet pan meals. So if you know that you've got some chicken and some cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts, and you want to figure out what maybe the third thing would be, you can check out the formulas in the book or in the course or on my website that walk you through putting that final step in to making a really good sheet pan meal. So one thing that I really like using that I think is fun and almost unexpected is taking a fat rendering protein like chicken thighs or pork chops maybe, mixing that with a root vegetable like carrots, parsnips or anything, and then seasoning all of that with a stone fruit. So you would take, say, let's do chicken thighs, rub them with salt and pepper and some olive oil, do the same thing with sliced carrots, and then add pitted cherries. The cherries mix with the rendering fat of the chicken thighs while it's cooking, which kind of greases the pan and adds a little bit more oil kind of to the flavoring. And then it all cooks together so that when it's finished, the cherries have almost melted into a sauce. And what you're left with is this rendered fat, crispy chicken thigh, these carrots that have cooked in a mixture of the rendered fat and cherry juice, and these melted cherries. And it's delicious. So thinking about ways specific ingredients work in the hot oven and then how they can pair together to bump up the flavor profile of other ingredients is a cool way to kind of think about how you can make your own sheet pan meal at home. Pairing different things, always look for a moisture content so that one thing has more of a moisture content than the other. If you've got a moisture content in cherries, that's going to break down a lot while things are cooking, and you're taking that fat from the chicken, and that's going to render down. That's going to help the dry, not so moisture content of the carrots cook to a perfect finish. And then if you make sure that everything is cut in shapes that they all cook at the same time, after half an hour, you would wind up with an amazing meal all on one pan, which means you only have one pan to wash, which is another reason why sheet pan cooking is amazing, because it's just one pan to wash. And if you line that thing with a tin foil, like, you're golden. Like, it's the easiest in the world. So those are my 3 secrets. We'll go over them real quick. So number 1, get a good pan. Don't get a cheap pan. Get a pan that causes bodily harm, but don't actually hurt anybody with it. Secret number 2, cut similar shapes and sizes. Make sure that whatever you're putting into the oven at that moment is going to come out cooked at the same length, within the same length of time. And that does take a little bit of trial and error sometimes, and I get that. And a good way to get over that is to get familiar with different types of sheet pan recipes. Number 3, let the ingredients do the work. Find ingredient pairings that would, while they're cooking, release their flavor in a different way that would then season the other ingredients on the pan. So those are the 3 sheet pan secrets that I have. If you want more information on Uncomplicated Kitchen, and where we do a much more deep dive into making your own sheet pan meals, I'll be sending you some information after this class. I'm also going to have that replay up and ready to go. I'll be sending it to your email here pretty soon. And then if you are interested in the cookbook, I'll send you a link for that too. You can check it out on Amazon if you don't have one yet, or you can just always go to my website, percolatekitchen.com. And I think that's everything. Let me look at all my notes. I have all these notes up behind the board. Yeah, I'm good. I think I'm good. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop me a line, drop me an email, send me an Instagram DM, send me a message on Facebook, although I'm not very good at checking my Facebook. So Instagram DM and email is always the best way to get a hold of me. And yeah, I think that's everything. So go forth and sheet pan, guys. It's life-changing, at least it was for me. And it's going to make your weeknights go from crazy to a lot more relaxed, especially once you get the hang of some of these secrets and hacks and tips and tricks and stuff like that. So thank you for being here, and I will answer some questions as soon as the class is finished. All right, have a good day.